Hi and welcome to Newswire LA. I'm your host, Chin Thomasanksi. Today we're standing on top of the West Boulevard Bridge in Mid-City, Los Angeles. This bridge is turning 80 years old this year and it's going to have a celebration. But this bridge has an unknown history. It's a bridge that links actually two parts of Los Angeles and also came about as the result of a horrific tragedy back in 1913. You want to know more? Stick around. We'll be right back after the credits. Hi and welcome to Newswire LA. I'm your host, Chin Thomasanksi. Today we're standing next to the West Boulevard Bridge here in Mid-City, Los Angeles. You may not know it, but this bridge is turning 80 years old, and there are a number of celebrations taking place around this bridge to commemorate that milestone. Today, in the first of a two-part look, we're going to find out what makes this bridge so historic in the Los Angeles landscape. We're also going to go up onto the bridge itself and show you many of the physical attributes which make it a beauty of engineering and architecture. Stick around for us and we'll be right back after this. The West Boulevard Bridge, which we're standing on today, was built in 1933. The bridge was built for several reasons. First, it was built to coincide with the development of Lafayette Square on the southeast and Victoria Park on the northeast. Second, there was no physical link for Mid-City to the areas of Hollywood and Hancock Park. This bridge was built to allow children here in the Mid-City area to be able to make their way over to Los Angeles High School, which is located over on Olympic and Rimpau. Finally, this bridge was built after a horrific accident in 1913 claimed the lives of 15 people. Those are the facts behind the building of this bridge. Let's find out more as we go ground level. Our discussion of the West Boulevard Bridge is going to start actually 30 minutes northeast of our current location on the far end of downtown. Los Angeles' most storied bridges are located here and span the length of the Los Angeles River. According to the LA Conservancy, 27 bridges span the river from the San Fernando Valley to Long Beach. Most of LA City's bridges were constructed between the years of 1909 to 1938 when the car culture was starting to explode. The style of most of these bridges were highly ornamental and massive. This reflected a belief that these structures should add to the beauty of the landscape while heightening citizens' character, morale, and civic awareness through architecture and urban planning. In January 2008, the Los Angeles City Council voted unanimously to designate 11 of the 13 bridges as historic cultural monuments. This designation ensures a role for the Cultural Heritage Commission in reviewing proposed bridge widening and replacement projects. Let's take a look at the 7th Street Bridge, which we're on right now. This bridge links this portion of downtown with the area east, which will lead into several industrial areas and East Los Angeles. I am going to tell you that this is actually a double-decker bridge. The part of the bridge you're looking at was actually built on top of a lower bridge portion. In doing that, all railway crossings that were once at grade were eliminated. Like the West Boulevard Bridge, the railway companies paid a portion of the cost along with the city to build this structure. Also, overseeing the project was city engineer Merrill Butler, who also saw the building of our West Boulevard Bridge. The 7th Street Bridge opened formally on September 19, 1927. As mentioned earlier, the 6th Street Bridge shares a number of design elements with our West Boulevard Bridge. This bridge, with its striking trusses and concrete plinths, is scheduled for demolition. The bridge suffers from alkali silica reaction, or ASR. This condition actually causes the concrete to become powdery and weak. In doing that, it makes the condition of the bridge unstable and unsafe to handle pedestrian and vehicular traffic. A new bridge, of a modern design and construction, will take its place even over the pleas from the Conservancy and others that this new bridge at least be visually similar to the old one. This is a very sad loss for the bridge and architecture community and Los Angeles at large. We're heading due west back to the West Boulevard Bridge. The bridge opened on April 25th, 1933. West Boulevard's name comes from the simple fact that this was the farthest street west in the city of Los Angeles at that time. The bridge is 127 feet long and nearly 30 feet wide from rail to rail. The most recent inspection report states that the condition of the deck is fair. The superstructure and substructure are good to satisfactory. Overall, and compared to the most modern bridges, the West Boulevard Bridge is functionally obsolete. As of the last report by BridgeHunter.com, on average, 12,718 cars pass over this bridge span each day. The California bridge number for this particular structure is CA 53C-1380. If you look behind me right now, we're looking at the east side of the West Boulevard Bridge. A little thing worth mentioning is that this little curb that extended out from the decorative arch about a foot into the roadway was actually a full sidewalk at one time. The sidewalk was cut off after the Pacific Electric Railway stopped running through there. People did not need to walk on that side of the bridge, so the city of Los Angeles decided to devote more of the bridge's roadway to auto traffic. And I'm standing here on the West Boulevard Bridge next to one of the supporting bridge structure. This is known as a plinth, and it also supports the decorative street light that also lines this particular span of bridge. If you look here, you can see one of them right next to me. It's made of solid concrete, and as you move up, you see the decorative aspects of it, which is made up of a fluted pole, which is rounded by a floral band and topped off by a cast iron GE Form 18 lantern. The GE Form 18 lanterns can be seen throughout the city today and are very common in areas like Hollywood, West LA, the Cahuenga Pass, and several others. Located immediately behind me is the safety beacon that's located on the south end of the bridge. It's covered by overgrowth right now, but it's right below that plinth that is holding up that street light. The safety beacon was a red Fresnel light that would flash intermittently to let traffic know that that concrete pilaster was there so they wouldn't crash into it. Again, like I said, there was one here at the south end, which is covered by the overgrowth, and there's another one at the north end. As I stated, the beacons were placed at both ends of the bridge. Here you can see what's left of the beacon on the north side. Its red Fresnel light was once covered by a protective iron screen. The actual beacon was similar to this one and warned cars not to veer too far to the right or left, or they'd be kissing concrete. This path leads down to Venice Boulevard from the corner of 16th and West. The path itself is simple and runs between the east side of the bridge and a private property. Conspicuously, no lighting element was ever installed that would make this path easy to navigate at night. The only light in the vicinity are the lights on the main bridge deck, and did not give off a lot of illumination. Most people would agree that using this path in today's environment is not the smartest move, and that may even apply if you are using it during daylight hours. My own parents use this path, which, if you make a left turn at Venice, will take you in the direction of the nearby Midtown Shopping Center. A nice find is this contractor's stamp, which is on Venice Boulevard eastbound just a few feet away from the arch leading under the bridge. Just from reading this, you can see that the contractor was an individual or company known as J.J. Papik. And if you believe the handwriting in the concrete, this block was laid on July 27th, 1932, which would be in line with the building of this particular structure. A pendant light, which could have been manufactured by GE, Westinghouse, or some other company, hangs from the ceiling. This light has been operational intermittently over the last few years due to two main factors. First, water has seeped into the conduit from the upper bridge deck. That water has shorted out the circuit. The second is that the homeless, when trying to sleep here, take sticks and boards and shatter the bulb when it does work. The portion of Venice Boulevard you're looking at behind me was once known as 16th Street. Prior to the bridge's building, and even several years after it was built, this side of Venice Boulevard was 16th Street, while the other side was devoted to the Venice Short Line. I just told you that the street we know of now as Venice Boulevard was once 16th. Let's go back to the main bridge span for a moment and map this out. This view is of today's Venice Boulevard. On the left, you see traffic which is heading eastbound. As stated in the graphic, this was 16th Street back in the early 20th century and served vehicular traffic only. Here's a view of today's Venice Boulevard with traffic heading westbound. This side of the street was devoted entirely to rail traffic, including the Venice Short Line, which came to a stop just below me before heading into what was known as the Vineyard. This short path today takes riders to the MTA bus stop that is just a few feet ahead of us, or it can lead to the steps that will take you inside of Victoria Park. In the old days, this is where the Venice Short Line stopped and let passengers off. And we're here on what's now the west side of Venice Boulevard. Just below me is a platform that's today an MTA bus stop. The bus stop picks up riders every day and takes them to places all along the Los Angeles line towards Venice. But back in the day, this was the spot where the Venice Short Line, the Pacific Electric Railway, would drop off passengers. Now, once passengers got off the train, they could do one of two things. They could go up the stairs, which is right behind the camera right now, and go straight into Victoria Park Place. Or they could take the stairs that you're looking at right here and go up to West Boulevard. They could either go down to Pico Boulevard, which would take them over to Sears Pico, or they could go back this way and head towards Washington Boulevard. And we're here next to one of the two stairways which led up from the Venice Short Line to either the West Boulevard Bridge or Victoria Park Place. If you take a look, this particular bridge is designed in the Art Deco motif. Now, if I walk up a couple of stairs here, you're going to see some of the decorative ironwork which was done on this bridge many years ago. Everything you see here is original and in that Art Deco motif. From the top of the stairs, you have a panoramic view of the cul-de-sac that is known as Southwest Boulevard. This road has always ended here and has never gone through. Just below, you can see what is today a concrete box. That used to be one of the stairways that led upward from the Venice Short Line. The city did this to deter loitering and possible criminal activity. And now I'm standing just below the stairway we were just on. You can see here that we have three arches that were part of the bridge construction. These arches are designed in the Art Deco motif we spoke of earlier. Just above me was a decorative light. The decorative light was also a GE Form 18. It was designed to match the lights on the bridge span itself. But in the last few years, that particular light was removed. Now, coming up on your screen shortly should be a photograph of that light, which was taken in 1994. The loss of this light takes a lot away from this structure. We're not sure what actually happened to it, but we did find a similar light at the main yard of the Los Angeles Bureau of Street Lighting. That's it to the upper right. Here's a full view of the east-facing side of the bridge. Near the far north end of the bridge are another set of stairs that led to the upper deck. After the discontinuation of the Venice Short Line and the removal of the east sidewalk, both stairway entrances were fenced off. This set of stairs appeared to allow residents of Victoria Park to enter the bridge without having to walk all of the way down towards Venice Boulevard. Joining us now is Mitzi March Mogul. She is a member of the West Adams Heritage Association. She is the one who did the intensive report that was submitted to the Los Angeles Planning Commission. Her report could lead to a historical monument status being tacked on to this bridge. This week, Mitzi will talk about the technical aspects of getting this bridge monument status. Next time, she'll tell us the stories that led to the building of this structure. And now, Mitzi March Mogul. And I'm going to correct my opening, which said that your report was leading to the designation of this bridge being historical monument. I have to say it already is. Tell us what number this historical monument is.
Well, at this point, it is Historic Cultural Monument number 1023.
Now, we've talked a lot about the physical features of this particular bridge, I should say. Give me the genesis of how you got involved in this and how the West Adams Historical Association got involved in this.
Well, it's West Adams Heritage Association.
Okay,
well, you said historical, which isn't entirely incorrect.
Mm-hmm.
But heritage is more encompassing, I think, because it's not just about monuments of the physical type, houses, buildings, and bridges, and so on, but it's also events and people and those kinds of things that added to that. Buildings don't create themselves. They're created by people. And people are a product of their environment, their upbringing, their culture, their attitudes, their beliefs, and so on. And so that's really what West Adams Heritage is dedicated to, is looking at and examining and understanding that holistically, if you will. Mm-hmm. So how did I come to this? Well, I got a call one day. The genesis is that the Mid-City Neighborhood Council, MINC, was interested in the bridge. Now, what exactly originally piqued their interest, I don't know. But they were interested, and that's a good thing. They realized that West Adams Heritage had a lot of experience in doing nominations. And so they went to the WAHA board and asked if they would be willing to assume this task for the bridge. And the WAHA board agreed. And the next thing I knew, I got the call asking me if I would be willing to take this on. And I thought, well, sure, how hard could one little bridge be? That won't take me very long. Oh, silly me. Because there I was months and months and months later doing research into the history and genesis of this bridge, a story that had been long buried and forgotten. And it really is a story that is transcendent and has implications for all of Los Angeles and her history. So it became quite the project, bigger than anyone had ever imagined it would be. But in the end, it revealed a wonderful story, a sad story, but by nominating and designating the bridge, I think we've given it the ultimate happy ending.
Now, before we get into the story of this bridge, and I want to talk about the factors that brought this bridge into being, talk to me about what you had to do over that course of time to put together the report that I read that got this bridge this monument number. Give me an idea.
Wow. Well, research is always time-consuming. This turned out to be even more time-consuming, depending on how I would even type in a search term. I would get back different answers. Which is kind of typical for most research projects, but spellings were different then. The way people would refer to the bridge or other aspects of the story differed from time to time, from newspaper article to newspaper article. And so I began, just little by little putting the story together. And as I've said, and because you've read this voluminous nomination, one of the largest, I believe, ever submitted to the Cultural Heritage Commission.
Wow.
You wouldn't think for one little bridge. But the story goes back to 1913 and has statewide implications with the State Railroad Commission. And so it led me in directions that I never anticipated, learning more about transportation in Los Angeles and the early train system and what most people refer to as the red cars, except that they weren't all red. They were only red on one particular line. There were the yellow cars and the blue cars, and there were lots of different lines, and they intersected sometimes. And in fact, I found out at one point that had this line continued and had they done things just a little bit differently in those early days, we would have had a subway from here almost to downtown.
Wow. So
you see how history really does have an impact. 100 years later, 50 years later, things that no one anticipated. And here we are talking about subways and new streetcar lines and rail lines and so on.
everything that's old is new again, basically.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. You do historical preservation as it is your profession.
It's a busman's holiday for me. Yes, it is.
Tell me a little bit about what that's like.
It's never dull.
I got to tell you, it's got to be exciting. It's got to take you to some interesting places.
It certainly does. And in fact, I've traveled the world. So I can't say that I'll ever get rich, but I have no regrets either. I've met lots of interesting people and seen many interesting things. And of course, Los Angeles is my hometown. I was born and raised here. So I want to see good things happen here, and I want to see all the things that I enjoyed growing up and was able to appreciate. Well, I say all, lots of them are gone. Mm-hmm. I remember downtown when it was filled with old mansions. It was fantastic. And then they decided to redevelop it. And when you see pictures of what it used to be, it really can make you cry.
Bunker Hill, the original courthouse. There was even a city hall before the city hall we've come to know that was down there. So many things. The original Chinatown. Absolutely.
All of those things and more. And it was one of those houses on Bunker Hill that drew me to historic preservation, by the way. I didn't have a name for it. Nobody called it historic preservation back then. I was a kid, and it was called the Rochester House. And it stood on Temple Street. You could see it as you went down the Hollywood Freeway, right as you were about to transition to the 110 South. And there it stood, and it was this wonderful sort of French mansard revival. And they were getting ready to tear it down, and someone hung a sign on it that said very simply, "Save me." And they tried, but in the end, we lost the Rochester House. But I never forgot that.
But it lit your fire and has you out here saving monuments like this bridge, among other things.
And houses throughout Los Angeles and many large buildings that you would certainly recognize the names of, or pass them daily along Wilshire Boulevard and Hollywood and all over the place. I've been very, very fortunate.
In studying this bridge and standing here right now, what are your favorite aspects of this bridge? What are your most favorite things that you like about it?
Well, I love the pilasters surmounted by the light fixtures. And by pilasters, I'm referring to those sort of vertical pieces that stick out a little bit, but not all the way. So they're not a column. They're only a pilaster.
How'd you know I was about to say, or do you mean a column? But it's not a column.
It's not a column. A column is freestanding. So these are just pilasters because they kind of die into the rest of the bridge there. And they've got that, what I think is a lovely stylized, freeform, floral design at the top. And then it kind of becomes slightly geometric. That was so typical of the Art Deco. And then the very graceful light standards on the top. So I particularly like that. I think it's lovely and graceful, and when the lights are on, it's a lovely sight.
This bridge is now a historic cultural monument.
Yes.
And they can never tear it down. True or false?
Well, unfortunately, false. Unfortunately, the Register of Monuments does list things with the word demolished after the name. It's not terribly common. Most of the time, we find ways to make everybody happy, but it does happen. It may be, and I don't want to whistle in the dark here, but because this is owned by the city and is not subject to the whims of a private developer, it may be somewhat safer. There will have to be a more public kind of discussion if someone were to propose demolition. And I would hope that everyone would come out and vocally support the continued nomination of the bridge. It is seismically sound. It's not going anywhere. You and I will both be long in our graves, and this little bridge will still be standing. So there's no reason for concern about that. But it can happen. Someone can apply to demolish something that is a monument. There is a process. It's not easy. They must follow the process, and there's a time frame, so which is lengthy. It's not meant to be an easy process to demolish something that has very clearly met the qualifications that have been established. And that's a safeguard for all of us, because monuments belong to all of us.
And that's it for the first part of our two-part look at the West Boulevard Bridge here in Mid-City Los Angeles. Come back next week and we're going to take you up onto the bridge span and show you what architectural aspects make this bridge so significant. And that's it for this Newswire LA broadcast. We thank you for joining us. As always, to follow everything Newswire LA, look us up on Facebook and Twitter at Newswire LA. I'm your host, Chin Thomasanksi, saying good night, and we'll see you next week.